Have you ever seen an elderly people sleeping in a different way? Calmer, deeper, as if the body was lighter and time slower. Have you noticed when they sleep with paused, almost imperceptible breathing, and that expression of serenity that seems to hide a silent secret? What if I told you that this kind of sleep can actually be a farewell sign? Yes, it can be the last message of the body before the departure. Many family members, children, grandchildren, and even caregivers only realize the severity of this type of sleep after it's too late, when the hug becomes longing, when the words that could have been said are lost in silence. This video is a warning. It is a call for you to understand the silent signs that precede the end, and for you to be emotionally prepared to recognize when the elderly are saying goodbye in life. Change in sleep is one of the most subtle but deeper forms of manifestation of this process. We are not talking about common tiredness or a sleepless night. We are talking about deep, almost spiritual sleep, where the body seems to rest more than usual, where closed eyes do not hide only tiredness but reveal a break between life and goodbye. In this video, I will reveal to you what almost no one talks about. I will explain how this type of sleep can represent one last stage of life, a moment that requires presence, attention, care, and above all, love. Let us explore together what science, spirituality, and the most intimate reports of bereaved families have to say about it. If you have parents, grandparents, or someone dear in the elderly, this content is essential, because it is not just about understanding the health of the elderly, but of being aware of the last gestures, the last signs, the last silences. Sleeping is something we do every day, but when an elderly sleeps like this, what does that really mean? It is at this moment that the body begins to give evidence that it is ending a cycle. The beats get slower, the skin changes tone, the respiratory rate changes, silence is denser, more present, the environment changes, and for those around it is almost as if time stopped, and even without words the heart feels something is about to happen. I know this is not an easy to hear subject, but it is necessary, because saying goodbye with conscience is an act of love, and recognizing the signs of this farewell is a gift that few have the opportunity to live. It's not about sadness, it's about connection. It is about giving time to time and allowing the end to be lived with respect, dignity, and presence. So I invite you to continue here with me, because in the next few minutes you will find out how to identify these signs clearly, how to prepare emotionally for this moment, and, most importantly, how to be present when it matters most. But before you continue, tell me here in the comments, have you ever been through something like this? Have you ever felt that someone close was saying goodbye, even without saying a word? Your story can help other people. Share with us. If you have already lived something like, if you have already noticed strange changes in the sleep of someone you love, if you already felt that deep intuition that something was different, that silence said more than 1,000 words, shares in the comments. Your story can play other people who are going through this moment now. You can welcome, you can guide, you can make someone realize something you don't understand yet. Here, each comment matters. Each shared experience helps build a space for empathy, information, and support. This content was done very carefully because the truth is that no one prepares us for the farewell. Few know what really happens in the last days or hours of life of an elderly, and even less know how to recognize these signs in sleep, gestures, behavior. Therefore, understanding every detail of what we are going to talk about here is so important. It is a way of honoring those we love and be present at the right time, the right way. And if this content is already making sense to you, if you are opening your eyes or bringing important reflections on life and the end, leave your like. This helps YouTube to deliver this video to more people who need to hear this message, people who may right now are next to a father, a mother, a grandfather, not knowing that they are living the last days together. And of course, you subscribe here on the channel, because this is a space for welcoming, learning, and real connection. Here we talk about what really matters: health, life, and the love we have for the people who are part of our history. And if you don't want to lose any content like this, which brings information, emotion, and guidance, activates the bell too, because what comes next can change the way you view the last moments with the one who loves. Au gras, let's go on. Because understanding how the body starts to slow down, starting precisely with sleep, you can make all the difference. You will realize that in the last days or even the last hours of life of an elderly, some subtle changes begin to appear. And one of the most common, but also one of the most ignored, is precisely in sleep. It is not that sleep of tiredness of everyday life, not only laziness or indisposition. It is a different sleep, a state of rest that seems deeper, longer, almost as if the body is entering another rhythm, a slower, quieter pace, as if slowly turning off from reality around. Often, the eyes no longer open as often. And when they open, they get half-signed, half-lost, looking at a point that seems to be no longer here. It is as if the mind begins to move away from the present, from the now, and began to walk elsewhere. Breathing also changes. It can get slower, more spaced, or present that irregular pattern, with scare breaks. They are long, deep sighs that seem to carry an accumulated tiredness of years. For those who observe, it may seem just a heavy sleep. But for those who pay attention, for those who are really present, you can see that there is something bigger happening there. This type of sleep is not common. He is silent, but speaks a lot. It is one of the first signs that the body is entering a natural and inevitable process of dismissal. And most people, out of fear or lack of information, prefers to believe that it is just another night of rest. But it is not. It is a transition. It is the organism saying that it is slowly ending its functions, which is preparing for a moment that all of us, sooner or later, will face. It is therefore so important that you learn to recognize these signs, not to go into despair, but to know how to act, to know what to say, to be there on the side with more awareness and presence. Because many times when an elderly man starts sleeping like this, he is no longer so connected with what is out, but he still feels. Feel the touch, feel the voice, feel the presence of those who love. And this can be the last opportunity to deliver love, affection, and farewell. It is painful to admit, but ignoring these signs can make you lose precious moments, moments that will never come back. It is at these times that the simplest words gain immense value. I love you, we are with you, can rest, can echo in the heart of those who are leaving as a balm. Even if the person does not respond, even if there are no words back, the body feels, the soul feels, and that makes all the difference. This is why I insist so much. The sleep of the elderly in recent days needs to be observed carefully, because he speaks, albeit in silence. He shows that something is changing, and when we understand this, when we look sensitive and love, the pain of farewell can be transformed into something lighter, more serene, more human. Science can even explain this technically, talking about metabolism, organic bankruptcy, neurological functions. But here I want you to understand in a simple, straightforward way, as if we were talking among friends. When the body begins to stop fighting, it begins to rest more. And this rest is not like before. It is longer, deeper. The muscles get looser, the eyes closed, the slower breath. Often the elderly no longer respond when it is called by name, but it is as if he was still here, in some way, in a place between sleep and eternity. Sometimes he moves his lips without emitting sound. Other times, it lightly holds the hand of those near. This may seem random, but it carries a huge meaning. These are discrete forms of connection, small gestures that, if you are aware, can be understood as silent farewells. And that is why understanding this sleep pattern can give you a chance to offer something that many do not have: the possibility of saying goodbye with presence, intention, and love. After all, few things are as painful as losing someone without having a chance to say everything that needed to be said, unable to be there really, in the last moments. And believe me, many families still lament the fact that they have not perceived these signs. If they had understood that that deep sleep was more than tiredness, they might have stayed more nearby. Perhaps they had said more. Perhaps they had just held their hands a little more. And I say this not to scare you, but to prepare you, to help you see what often goes unnoticed. Because yes, the body warns, he gives signs, and sleep is one of the most visible if you are aware. It is not uncommon to see elderly who spend whole days sleeping, waking only for seconds without strength, unwilling to eat, without mood to speak. This state of lethargy is common in the final stages of life, and yet many treat it as something fleeting. But when this sleep pattern begins to repeat themselves, when the elderly no longer react as before, when everything looks more quiet, it's time to be aware, to be present, to listen with the heart. Some people, when they realize this, choose to stay longer with the elderly, and they report later that this was one of the most important decisions of their lives, because that moment, that silence, that last night, become an eternal memory. And even if there are no words, even if the elderly no longer speak, that moment carries a deep meaning. So, if you are going through this now, or know someone who is, share this video. Send that person who is taking care of the father, mother, grandfather, because sometimes all she needs is a different look, a more sensitive look, more prepared to understand what is happening. And here, I want you to help me broaden this message. Tell me in the comments if you have lived something like that. If you've seen an elderly sleeping in a way that seemed more than sleep. Right here below, I saw this happen, or I felt this kind of sleep on my grandfather, my mother. Each comment helps this message to come further, and it can be exactly what someone needs to better understand the moment they are living. To the extent that the elderly begins to present this deeper, quieter, often with irregular breathing and distant look, something bigger and more delicate is happening inside the body, and also inside the soul. Science shows us that there is a natural, inevitable process that is part of the own biology of life. The human body, when it is reaching the end of its journey, begins to disconnect. But this shutdown does not happen at once. It is gradual, slow, almost imperceptible, and that is precisely why so many people do not realize what is happening there, in that body that rests for long hours, without hunger, without thirst, with little or no response to stimuli, is an internal adjustment. The system begins to conserve energy. The organs begin to work slower. Blood circulation decreases at the extremities, metabolism slows down, and the brain begins to reduce its functions. In many cases, the body chooses to save energy, even to basic functions such as digestion. So it is so common that the elderly no longer want to eat or drink. This is not neglect or weakness. Nature is acting silently. The hormones also change. Substances responsible for nervous system activity, such as dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, decreasing, and this directly affects the warning state, appetite, and even humor. The endocrine system, which regulates much of the vital functions, no longer responds as before. The result is a body that seems increasingly absent, calmer, almost anesthetized by time. But make no mistake, even in this state, the elderly is still there, still feels. It may not speak, it may not open your eyes, but he realizes. He listens. He feels the touch. He feels the presence. And this is where the deepest part of this experience comes in, the emotional and spiritual aspect of this process. Because, as much as science explains, there is something that goes beyond biology. There is something that happens within the soul. It is as if she is also preparing, as if each cell was saying goodbye gradually, calmly, softly. It is not just the body that rests. It is the soul preparing the match. Many people who have gone through this process with a loved one report the same sensation, as if there was a different peace in the air, a silence that was not uncomfortable but welcoming. As if that moment carries a kind of wisdom that no one teaches, but everyone feels when they are truly present. And it is not uncommon for family members to say that they felt that the elderly were already between two worlds, as if part of it was still there, but another part were already elsewhere. This is not mysticism. It is sensitivity. It is humanity. It is the way the end of life talks to us even without words. If you observe closely, you will notice that there is a pattern. The body gives signs. The skin begins to change color, is pale, sometimes yellowish or purplish at the ends. The body temperature can fall, especially in the hands and feet. The breath no longer follows a constant pace. It can be quick for a while and then stop for a few seconds, as if the body is deciding whether it continues or rests for good. The look gets still. The eyes, even when open, seem to no longer see so clearly. And yet there may be times when the elderly wake up briefly, as if he wanted to give a last smile, say something simple, or just look around one last time. These moments are precious. These are rare opportunities for presence, love, listening. And when we understand why this happens, when we understand that it is not weakness, it is not withdrawal, but a natural and often serene process, we can be there in a lighter, more true, more humane way. Because deep down, what an elderly man who is starting more is not of magical formulas or empty promises. He needs company. You need to feel that you are not alone, that its story was valued, that your presence still matters even in that silence. It is also common that some people, given this process, try to bring the elderly back to reality with insistence, calling by name, trying to make him eat, asking him to strive. But this is not always the most sensitive. There is a time when the best way to take care is to accept. It is being by the side without demanding. It is giving room for the match to happen with dignity. And understanding this point requires emotional maturity, requires delivery, requires true love. The deep sleep that extends for hours and until days is, in most cases, a body response to this advanced state. The brain reduces its non-essential brain activities. The cerebral cortex responsible for consciousness is no longer so active. This is why the elderly seems distant. Sometimes he listens but does not understand. Other times he understands, but can't answer. This can cause suffering in those next to it, especially when there is a hope that it wakes up and interact again. But when we understand why all this is happening, we were able to offer a different kind of presence, a serene, loving presence, no charge. And even in this state, some seniors have moments of sudden lucidity. This is called by some terminal clarity experts. It is as if, for brief moments, the body gather enough energy to allow a farewell. This can happen hours before death. It can be a straight look in someone's eyes, a phrase dictated with difficulty, a smile, a tear. They are small gestures but meaningful. For those who are attentive, they are true treasures. So, once again, I reinforce, do not ignore the signs. Do not treat this different sleep as banal, because it is often he who announces that the end is near. And if you are prepared to recognize this, you can turn this moment into something much more human, much more true. You will be able to offer what few people get, a conscious farewell full of respect and love. And I know that all this is heavy, which can be too painful to face this reality. But that is precisely why the right information at the right time can make all the difference. It can transform suffering into learning. It can turn fear into courage. It can turn absence into a last gesture of affection. Now, if so far this content is touching you in some way, it helps me spread this message. Write here in the comments if you have already felt this happen to someone close. It can be with your father, with your grandmother, with a friend. Write a simple phrase like, "I went through it," or "I remembered someone who slept like this." This strengthens our content, helps other people identify with the message, and increases the reach of this video. When an elderly man begins to present all these signs that we have already talked about, the deepest sleep, the lost look, the spaced breath, the absence of response even with stimuli, it is natural that the family enters a warning state, or often denial. It is difficult to accept that the one who has been with us for so long, who created us, who was part of our emotional base, is reaching the end of his journey. And when this moment comes, it is common that many do not know what to do. They feel lost, insecure, seeking a way of acting, helping, dealing with that delicate scenario. And so, at this moment, more than any medicine or technical protocol, what really matters is the presence, the human, emotional, sincere presence, the silent presence that says, "I am here with you from start to finish." Being present goes far beyond being physically in the same environment. It is being whole. It is looking in the eyes, even if they don't look back. It is holding the hand, even if it does not squeeze back. It is talking, even if there is no answer. Because all this has a deep power. The human touch has an invaluable value. It transmits security, affection, continuity. When you hold the hand of an old man who is leaving, you are saying, without needing words, that he is not alone, that he can rest, that love remains, even if the body goes. At this point, each gesture matters. Each choice of words can make a difference. Many people, in an attempt to comfort, end up using phrases like, "You will improve soon," "Soon all this passes," "Get firm that you already," "It is standing." But one must understand that these words, although well-meaning, can create false expectation or even internal discomfort, even if the elderly do not verbalize. Because inside it, at some level, he knows, the body knows, the soul feels. He realizes that this moment is not physical healing, but farewell. So it is much more sensitive and true to say phrases like "you. We love it so much. You can rest if you want." These phrases carry truth, welcome, and acceptance that, as hard as it is, helps the other to feel alone. The emotional presence at this moment is as necessary as the physical presence. Show that you accept the process, which respects the rhythm of his body, which is there to accompany, not to change the course, but to be support, is one of the greatest demonstrations of love that can be offered. And it is important to remember that often the elderly may no longer speak, may not move, may seem absent, but that does not mean that he is not listening, feeling, or realizing. Several reports from families show that even without answering, the loved one cried when he heard a familiar voice, smiled as he felt a friendly hand, reacted with a lighter breath when hearing a song he liked. These answers may seem small, but they are all at that moment. Taking care of someone who is leaving is a noble gesture that requires courage and delivery. It is necessary to give up the need to control the outcome. You need to undress from anxiety, fear, despair, and wear a calm that you may not even know you have. Because when the end of life approaches, everything slows down, and those around you need to learn to slow down together. Speak lower, breathe deeper, observe with more affection, touch more kindly, be a mirror of peace for the one who is going. At these times, it is also worth bringing out good memories. Remember stories, tell happy moments, talking about things that made you laugh together, about achievements, about family, what was beautiful and true on the walk. Even if he doesn't answer, these words find a way. They relieve, they fill, they calm down, and you also need it, because taking care of someone at this stage is also a way of taking care of you. It is an active farewell, where love continues to be delivered to the last second. If there is space, bring music. Put that song he liked. Music has a very strong emotional power. It crosses physical barriers, activates memories and feelings. It can be a religious song, a song of his youth, a soft melody. Note how the environment changes, how the weather transforms itself, as even breathing can adapt to the rhythm of music. This subtle care creates a lighter, more welcoming emotional field, and that makes all the difference in the experience of the match. Another important point is the care of the environment. Create a calm, quiet space with soft lights. Avoid high noises. Avoid parallel conversations. Avoid unnecessary movements. The more tranquility there is around, the more emotional security the elderly feels to leave the body. Because yes, there is a moment when the soul needs permission to leave, and this permission often comes from the surroundings, come from the look that says, "You can go, it's okay, we'll be fine." And only those who live this understand how deep it is. For many, this can be the hardest moment in life, but it can also be the most sacred, because accompanying someone to the border between life and death is a privilege. It is a rare opportunity to witness the closure of a cycle with presence and dignity. And that is why spiritual care is also essential. Regardless of your belief or religion, offering a word of prayer, a peace energy, a light intention, is a way of contributing to the transition to happen with serenity. If the family has any spiritual tradition, it is time to rescue. Be a psalm, a Catholic prayer, a mantra, a song of faith. All this helps to create a vibration of love and delivery. And if you are going through this now, take a deep breath. You are doing the best you can. Being next to those we love at this moment is, by itself, an act of immense love. And even if the pain is large, know that it is also part of the process. Allow yourself to feel, allow yourself to cry, but also allow yourself to be strong. Not that force lasts of those who feel nothing, but that sweet force, who feels everything, but still chooses to be present. Now that you have arrived here, tell me, have you lived something like this? Been with someone at the end of life and felt that deep connection? Write here in the comments, "I was present," or "I followed someone like that." If you want, share a little of your story as well. Your reports can inspire other people, can comfort, can teach. If you have been Migo so far, my heart, thank you very much. This shows that you care, that you are seeking to understand and deal with such a delicate moment as human as possible. And so, I want to make you an invitation. You subscribe now on the channel, because here we talk about respect, depth, and truth about topics that many people avoid, but that are essential. And since you stayed until the end, I want to propose a simple gesture that can make all the difference to our content. Comments down here the phrase "I was present until the end." So I will know who really walked with me until the last minute. and I can give you a special heart in the comments. Your comment also helps other people understand that they are not alone. Enjoy also and leave your like, because it shows YouTube that this video has value, and the more people have access to this message, the more lives we can play. And now, if this video has helped you in any way, don't stop here. The next video is already appearing here on the screen. Click and continue with me on this journey. What comes next can help you further understand, welcome, and live this moment with wisdom. I hope you there.